Alcohol is unlike any other drug. You constantly need an excuse not to drink it. If you tell your friends you're not drinking tonight, they'll try to convince you otherwise. But if you were addicted to cocaine, no one would tell you, just have one line. Our society profits billions from people's drinking problems, portraying alcohol as fun, sexy, and cool. But alcohol is a poisonous drug. We're told drinking is harmless fun, but alcohol causes more damage than any other drug worldwide. I bought into this hype too, drinking to relieve my anxiety, to bond with friends. Let's hear it from some of our favorite celebrities about how alcohol has impacted their lives.
My father was an alcoholic. And I can still remember as probably a ninth grader, just waiting at night, not being able to go to sleep at night, waiting to hear a car come up. And you know what tires sound like when they're moving on gravel. You can hear the crunching. And that was, even though I didn't particularly want to hear him come in his drunken condition, I felt relieved that at least he was home. In my life, alcoholism was not a joke. It was not something that you could say, well, gee, you remember when your dad used to do this? It was not a joke to me to be embarrassed to have my father be with me when he was drunk. Maybe some of my friends would laugh about it, but I can tell you, my two brothers and my mother, living in a basement in a North Dakota city, because that's all we could afford, because my father had made a decision. Whether he had any choice in that decision, I'm not smart enough to understand how strong the drive was to have him make the decision. But I will guarantee you that decision was not a joke.
I'm not a drinker. I can honestly say I never had a beer in my life, okay?
Right.
It's one of my only good traits. I don't drink. Whenever they're looking for something good, I say, I never had a glass of alcohol. I've never had alcohol. I've just, for whatever reason. Can you imagine if I had, what a mess I'd be? I'd be the world's worst. But I never drank, okay? But I can tell you, I watched that hearing, and I watched a man saying that he did have difficulty as a young man with drink. The one question I didn't ask is, how about the last 20 years? Have you had difficulty the last 20 years? Because nobody said anything bad about him in many, many years. They go back to high school. I graduated from high school, and I while I did not drink, I saw a lot of people drinking. They'd drink beer, and they'd go crazy, and, they were in high school. They were 16, 17 years old, and I saw a lot of it. Does that mean that they can't do something that they want to do with their life?
It's so common for people to underestimate and rationalize their drinking until it reaches a tipping points or rock bottoms. Many think they have control or that problems won't happen to me. But just look at how many people can't complete dry January. Our drinking habits can be a slippery slope, and especially for the wealthy and successful.
And, I was an alcoholic. Well, you're always an alcoholic. I'm sober now, but I've tried for years. But, more than a year ago, because
that's recently.
I had a couple of public things. I don't know if you know
great.
that.
Didn't know that.
A couple of DUIs. Not one. Two within 6 months. Like, are you kidding me? So no, it was, you make mistakes. Don't drink and drive. Okay, please, ever. And those are some failures, and then your kids have got to see this shit, and it's on the news and all that stuff, and it's just like, oh God. But I guess to say it's another wake up call. I had been sober before that, and then just one day you slip, and then you get behind the wheel. That's literally what had happened both times.
Slip like you had 6 months or a year.
Oh yeah. Shit. And, you have a relapse, and then I had solid time before that first one. And then you have a day, and you're like, oh. The first
What would make you drink?
Oh, I'm triggered by everything. Well, that particular one, because, you talk yourself into it. The one was, I decided I wanted to change my sobriety date to New Year's Day. That's how dumb that type of thinking is, right? That's the alcoholic thinking. The alcoholic will plan and scheme, right? And so you start planning and scheming and thinking how you're going to have that drink for what? Now it goes back to the ADHD and the ADD, because you need to suppress the thing that's going on. Like you feel a bit out of control, so you want to control it. So you typically control it with a substance, right? Like maybe I can put this in line, or else I feel like it's less, whatever, racy. I'm saying before you go to the party, whatever, but you don't need to escape your present moment. What your desire is to be present. And so don't run away from it. Just get there.
Drinking is one of the few activities that if you don't partake, people assume or accuse you of having a problem. And it's just wild. I think drinkers don't like people who don't drink because it takes the fun out of it for them. Because there's this idea that's prolific on college campuses. If everyone's drunk, that somehow like the entire like vibe of the party is going to take on a new flavor. And I think that alcohol to me never felt good. I never liked it. And it was a recipe for a lot of fights, a lot of bad stuff happens, poor decision making. There's so many better ways to have a good time that alcohol isn't necessary.
For people like me who are in recovery, you are born feeling empty on a certain level. And you are looking unconsciously or consciously to fill that. And if you want to be an artist, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a musician, you think, man, if I ever make it, it's going to fix me. So then you make it, and it doesn't fix you. Now what? Hence the drugs, the alcohol. It's exactly what it is.
How did you stop?
How did I stop? Well, I mean, let's see, it was 23 years ago. And I was just done. I was done. I'd had a run. It was fun. I liked it. I wouldn't go back and change it.
You would?
But no, I wouldn't. But I had met a girl, my wife, Cheryl, and it was going on the rocks. And and it was because of my, wild ways and raising hell. And I knew that if I couldn't make it work with her, I was definitely not going to be able to make it work with anybody. I just had a moment of clarity, they call it. And I had been carrying around in my wallet. Now, by the way, I couldn't keep a pair of sunglasses. I lose my keys 20 times a day. I'm a spastic, and yet I was able to keep a drug and alcohol counselor's card in my wallet for a year. And so when I was ready, I had it, I made the call, and I've been sober for 23 years.
Alcohol makes people betray their deepest values, harming those they love most. This heartbreaking trade-off often pushes people to finally quit drinking.
How did you defeat alcoholism?
Well, I didn't defeat it. One doesn't look at it that way.
How long are you sober?
All I could say is I'm never sober. I don't want to be sober. But I have to say, I don't drink. But the part of being involved in alcohol and the way of that life and all, which is today, it's extremely interesting to see the way it's dealt with today. In my day, it was all part of being, as they used to say to Laurence Olivier, Sir Laurence Olivier, what's your favorite part of acting? He'd say, the drink after the show. That was his favorite part. So it was all part of a world. And then when it started to replace, when the cart was in front of the horse and it sort of replaced the work and all other parts, I was reluctant to stop, but my great friend Charlie Lawton, who I've talked about so many times, really begged me to stop for a while, just to take a look at it and asked me if I would, because he had stopped for about a year and I was continuing, and he was quite worried about me. It was during one of those episodes of drinking in London that I turned down Dog Day. I actually turned it down. I said, I don't want to go into a bank or rob a bank and do all that stuff. I was talking like this. And I actually turned it down after I had said yes. Well, they didn't just make me do it. They understood I wasn't going to do it. I quit. And they got somebody else. And during the course of this time, Bregman was on me. I said, Marty, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. He said, if you stop drinking for a while, could you just stop for a while? I said, okay. For a while and read the script. I said, okay. He said, no, I mean it. Just don't drink. So I didn't drink for a couple of days.
But how did you
Lament
stop
took me
drinking?
back
How did
to-
you stop drinking?
I didn't just stop dead on. It's a gradation. You know, you gradate from one stage to another. And then it takes a while to even, you know, like, as they often say, unscramble your brains. You know, you have a certain period of time. And then slowly I got to understand what it was. And but the great actors of the past and all, they would drink in the wings on stage. I mean, they'd done the parts, you know, it was part of the trade. But in our way, our approach to it, drinking wasn't a part of that.
Alcohol really is a good drug for coping with anxiety. That's why people use it. If you really like alcohol, it does two things to you. It makes you more extroverted and enthusiastic. You're on the ascending limb of the blood alcohol curve, which is why you have to keep drinking. Because if you plateau, that goes away. So you got to keep drinking. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing it does is reduce anxiety. So if you are a bit more socially anxious, and you also have that positive response to alcohol, which everyone doesn't have, by the way, then it's a great drug. But the problem is, it's a great drug for the moment. There's consequences.
The first drink when you were a little girl, 7 years old.
Yeah, my first drunk when I was 7. I had my first drinks, you know, much younger. Even as a little kid, you're like, that's a comfort.
But no one noticed. Not a teacher, not your parents. You didn't get in trouble. You drank through elementary school, middle school, high school, college. How did you do it? I mean, how did you function?
It was hard. I don't know, but maybe it was easier. Maybe I would have never survived without a drink.
Selma writes, the desire to drink as much as I could, as often as I could, stayed with me and did not let go for more than 20 years. When you were thinking about writing a memoir,
you suffer enough that something inside you goes, I'm done. And I'm like lucky because I hit that point before I lost really the things that were the most important, which was not my career or money, but was my relationship with my kids. And when I felt as if it impacted them, I recognized it. It was the worst day of my life. I made amends. And for a while, I thought maybe this is temporary. Maybe this feeling is going to go away. But since that day, I swear to Christ, I have not ever wanted to drink once.
In your late 20s, you stopped drinking.
Stop drinking, yeah.
Very difficult?
No, beautiful, unbelievable.
Better.
Oh, are you kidding? I would never be sitting here with you. No way, no chance.
Because?
Because I wouldn't have been able to have access to myself or other people, or even been able to take in other people if I hadn't changed my life. No way. And I never would have been able to have relationships that I do. I never would have been able to take care of my father the way I did when he was sick.
Thank you, Bradley. Bradley just put his daughter to bed and rushed over here to do this. He's a sweetheart. I got sober because of this guy, and every day has been happier ever since.
What I realized was I was running to things to avoid tough feelings, painful feelings. I just didn't know how to deal with them, and looking for anything I found that I use for escape, I guess, difficult feelings. I don't know how better to describe it. I mean, that can be anything. That can be drugs, booze, Netflix, snacks, anything. I don't want to, at this point, to be running from anything. I want to sit in it. I want to feel it. I want to get through the rough night. And I found in doing so, you come out the other side with a more profound understanding of yourself, a greater gratefulness for those in your life and the birds and the trees and everything else.
You've said your dad always saw the good in you through all of this. Was there ever a time when you thought, okay, there's no way, he's going to give up on me, I've done it now?
Never, not once.
Hunter Biden is the president's second son, a Yale-trained lawyer and a lobbyist whose well-publicized drug problems, personal scandals, and business dealings seem to have kept him in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. As the Biden sons got older, their paths diverged. Beau was a war veteran and Delaware Attorney General with his sights set on higher office. But Hunter, who was kicked out of the Navy Reserve after failing a drug test, grappled with substance abuse for years. And after Beau died of brain cancer in 2015, Hunter says he was binge drinking vodka so heavily that his father intervened.
He came to my apartment one time, and this is when he was still in office as vice president. And so he kind of ditched his Secret Service, figured out a way to get over to the house. And I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Honey, "What are you doing?" I said, "Dad, I'm fine." He said, "You're not fine."
He sought and got help in rehab, but in time he fell off the wagon and deeper into the abyss.
You would wake up some mornings, I shouldn't even say some mornings because you slept for like 15 minutes at a time, and be looking for crack and just smoke whatever was there?
Yeah, I spent more time on my hands and knees, picking through rugs, smoking anything that even remotely resembled crack cocaine. I probably smoked more Parmesan cheese than anyone that you know, I'm sure, Tracy.
Because there'd be crumbs mixed in, and you just...
I mean, I went one time for 13 days without sleeping and smoking crack and drinking vodka exclusively throughout that entire time.
Hunter Biden's struggle with his personal demon, beautiful things, is a phrase he and his brother shared to remind each other of the good in life.
It was the last thing that he said to me.
Was?
Beautiful things. And I held his hand, and he took his last breath.
Bo's death shook the entire Biden family.
Drinkers think they're drinking to escape, but what they're really doing is trying to get over a disease they don't know they have. Me, it's about the guy who drove to the liquor store at 1:45 so he could drink alone. It's about all these habits. It's about why my reaction was different.
Nobody had ever dealt with that.
Yeah, he's a man filled with so much laughter and wit. It's impossible to imagine that he was caught in a kind of riptide. So much alcohol.
Matthew Perry shares an eye-opening account of being one of Hollywood's biggest stars who waged a behind-the-scenes battle with substance abuse.
Matthew Perry is 53 years old, but he knows most of us will always remember when we first saw him.
Okay, who wants light cheese and who wants dark cheese?
Chandler Bing, played by an actor who was effortlessly so fast and original. And now it seems impossible that all those years ago when we were laughing, we never knew that the young star was fighting for his life in a riptide of addiction. It was pulling him to hell and back over and over again, and he was trying to keep it a secret from everyone.
Writing the book, it was like cleansing. It was like a wonderful experience. I just wrote all these terrible things. I got them down on the page. One of the things that I learned was that the highs and lows for me were unbelievable, and I'm really grateful for all the good things that happened to me. But when I went to the first treatment center, I had a meeting with a doctor, and he explained that it was a disease, and I had no idea, and that took so much of it. Made me feel better because it wasn't really my fault. I had this disease, I had to fight it, and I've been fighting it for so long that that's the evidence that things are going well. Just a brief lesson in alcoholism for you guys that don't know. In 1956, I think the American Medical Association said it was a disease. It's a two-pronged disease. Two things happen to me and 10 million other people in the United States. It's an obsession of your mind. So what that means is you think of a martini, and then slowly but surely, it's the only thing you can think about. You can't think about anything else. I gotta get a martini. I know I'm supposed to be over here working, but I gotta get another martini. Martini. And then once you take that martini, you break the membrane of sobriety. And once you do that, the obsession is gone, but the allergy of your body, which is the second prong of the disease, takes over and says, oh, now we're drinking. I'm gonna make you drink as much as you did last time and more. It's progressive, so I'm gonna make you drink more than you did last time.
You say, addiction, the big terrible thing, is far too powerful for anyone to defeat alone. But together, one day at a time, we can beat it down.
Yeah. Your disease is just outside, just doing one-arm push-ups, just waiting for you, waiting to get you alone. Because alone, you lose to the disease. And now I finally feel okay.
In the years ahead, it will not be a straight road to sobriety. That message that you have to keep reaching out, you have to keep trying,
For a start, I've surrendered, but to the winning side, not the losing. I'm no longer mired in an impossible battle with drugs and alcohol, and helping others had become the answer for me.
You know, the thing that always makes me cry, and I hope I don't cry here, is that it's not fair. It's not fair. That I had to go through this disease while the other 5 didn't. They got everything that I got. But I had to fight this thing, and still have to fight this thing. So just to end this on a good note, there are people that will help you, and get their help. It doesn't go away. It never goes away. It took over decades of my life, and I pray to you, if you worry that you're having this problem, or you know somebody that is, raise your hand, find somebody who's smarter than you about this, and talk to them, and be honest about it, because the secrets are what kill us.
To anyone out there who's struggling with their alcohol habits, please know that you're not alone. There is a solution if you're willing to take that first step and get support. Keep trying, keep fighting, and never lose hope that freedom and a better life are possible. I want to thank these celebrities for opening up and helping to remove the stigma around alcohol. When we share our stories openly, we take away the taboo and the shame and stigma. If you've been trying to quit drinking and you just can't get it to stick, follow me over on Instagram and jump into my DMs, or have a look at all of the free resources I have available in the description below. I really appreciate you watching.